In the golden glow of early 1940s Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip was a narrow ribbon of neon-lit promise. It wasn't just a road, it was a stage. Studios, agents, producers, and rising stars all drifted toward its glittering hotspots at night, looking to be seen. And at the center of this nocturnal show stood Ciro's, a nightclub that wasn't just a venue, it was a declaration. Ciro's had opened its doors in January 1940, the latest project from nightlife impresario William Wilkerson. He already had successes like Café Trocadero and La Rue under his belt, but Ciro's was his crown jewel. Located at 8433 Sunset Boulevard, the club mixed European elegance with Hollywood swagger. Plush banquettes lined the walls, mirrored ceilings caught the light in 1,000 reflections, and every table had a perfect view of the small stage where torch singers and big bands played to packed rooms. Almost immediately, it became the place to be. You could walk in on any given night and spot Humphrey Bogart laughing with Lauren Bacall, Lana Turner leaning in close to a producer, or Frank Sinatra holding court. The Los Angeles Times wrote about it like it was the beating heart of Hollywood nightlife. Ciro's wasn't just entertainment, it was influence. Deals were struck over champagne. Casting decisions could happen between the appetizer and dessert. But even in its earliest days, Ciro's was more than just glitter and gossip. The Strip in the 1940s was a place where legitimate business and organized crime often rubbed shoulders, sometimes without either side making much effort to hide it. Into this world walked Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, a man who could wear a suit better than most leading men, and whose charm was only matched by his reputation. Siegel wasn't a stranger to the Sunset Strip. By the time Ciro's was in full swing, he had already established himself in Los Angeles as both a businessman and a figure whose connections stretched deep into the underworld. Unlike some mob figures who preferred to operate from the shadows, Siegel understood the value of being seen. He dined at the best tables, tipped lavishly, and mingled with Hollywood's biggest names like he was one of them. His connection to Ciro's wasn't just social, it was strategic. Siegel and William Wilkerson were acquaintances, and the club provided an elegant backdrop for the kind of meetings where money, favors, and influence could change hands without a single contract signed. There were whispers that Siegel used the venue as a convenient hub for introductions and quiet negotiations, the kind that didn't appear in the trades but shaped the city's balance of power. The so-called takeover of Ciro's didn't happen like a gangster movie. There was no public shakedown, no smoky back room with threats tossed across the table. Instead, it was a gradual shift in atmosphere. By the early 1940s, regular patrons noticed that certain tables were always reserved when Siegel was in town. Certain performers seemed to appear on stage because he wanted them there. And while Wilkerson was still the legal owner, Siegel's presence became an unspoken part of the club's identity. One of the most telling signs of his influence came when Siegel was awaiting trial for murder in 1941. He wasn't the kind of man to eat prison food, and Ciro's reportedly sent him meals straight to his cell, high-quality dinners that reminded everyone just how far his reach extended. Virginia Hill, Siegel's girlfriend and a prominent figure in her own right, was also said to have hosted parties at the club, sometimes handing over enormous sums of cash, like she was buying a round of drinks. To the outside world, it still looked like the city's most glamorous playground, but inside the circle of Hollywood insiders and power brokers, it was understood. Ciro's was now also Bugsy's room. Whether or not Wilkerson approved of every influence Siegel had, the reality was that the mobster's social capital made him difficult to resist. His charm kept the stars close, and his reputation kept potential problems at a distance. By the mid-1940s, Siegel's focus had shifted toward Las Vegas and the development of the Flamingo Hotel, a project that began under Wilkerson before Siegel took control. That transfer of power in Nevada mirrored what had quietly happened on the Sunset Strip. A legitimate business edged toward mob influence without losing its public-facing respectability. When Siegel was assassinated in Beverly Hills in 1947, Ciro's kept running, but the years that followed never quite carried the same combination of glamour and quiet menace. The club remained popular into the 1950s, hosting stars and tourists alike, but its association with that era of Sunset Strip mob presence became part of its mythology. What happened at Ciro's is a lesson in how organized crime sometimes took root in Los Angeles, not through overt violence, but through relationships, charm, and the blending of two worlds that weren't as separate as they seemed. On paper, Ciro's was still Wilkerson's creation, but in the hearts of those who were there was a period when Bugsy Siegel's shadow stretched across every table. It wasn't a takeover that the public could point to on a specific night, but to those in the know, the shift was as real as the music on the stage. Hollywood stars may have been the main attraction for the press, but behind the scenes, another kind of power was at play. Quiet, calculated, and dressed to the nines.